Hello, everybody. We're so glad you could join us this morning on this nice, crisp fall morning.
Yes, there was definitely frost on the pumpkin.
That's right.
I noticed.
I'm enjoying these temperatures, though. We had a fire in the fireplace the other night. It was nice.
Oh, so did I?
Yes, yeah. Robbie always can't wait till the first little chilly night, and he's got a fire.
I love it. It's a very snuggy feeling.
I know, it really is. Well, we are glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about planting because fall is definitely a perfect time to plant, and there's so many choices out there and so many ways to plant, but we've got the right way today.
Well, we had
one of the right ways.
Perfect situation to discuss this, you know. I said to Debbie, what is the title of this? Do you need a tree? Okay, plant a tree. So we're going to actually show you how we at Merrifield Garden Center plant our trees, because it's important to do it right. And then the watering, of course, is also. But we're also going to give you some other choices than the main one we're talking about it. So
you've got a couple of shots here to show us.
Yeah, I'd like to show you a couple of fun shots, okay? The first one, actually, one of our granddaughters, Gretchen, took last Sunday, and I thought it was great. It really shows the beauty of a mature tree. This is an oak tree in my garden, and they're beautiful in all seasons. They do so many things for us, and look how lovely. We don't think of oaks contributing that much to the fall color, but they do. So this is a very healthy tree, thank goodness. But in the next picture, we'll show you where it wasn't a healthy tree. And unfortunately, we had to take it down, which left me with a space. So,
which is kind of unheard of in your yard.
I really have to sort of look for a space to plant anything.
Absolutely.
You know? But sometimes losing a tree, although you cry about it for a minute, maybe more than a minute, now you have the opportunity for something else. So we are going to talk to you today about what I chose and why I chose the tree that I did to plant in that area.
And David popped over and
David was
helped you out
with me.
there.
Yes, he was.
So he's going to help you all as well a little later in the show. Before we get started, a couple of quick announcements. First of all, we've got a lot to talk about today, so we're not going to be taking phone calls today. And then we've got a couple of save the date type of thing. You know, it's getting close to the holidays. If you come into Merrifield Garden Center right now, you will be overwhelmed with the beauty of the holidays, because the Christmas shop is being done, and I mean in ways it looks like it's done, but there's so much more they're putting out, but it's just beautiful. So a couple of events coming up for the holidays. November 21st is our Ladies' Night Out, which is a lot of fun. We hope you'll join us for that. That's kind of a kickoff to a pre-kickoff to the season, I guess we could say. November 23rd and December 7th, we'll have some of our holiday decorating seminars going on. We finished our fall series, and now we're going to kick back in, November 23rd with a couple of, I guess there's 4 different holiday decorating seminars. And then on November 29th and 30th and December 1st, we'll have our holiday open house. So that will be here before we know it. I can't believe it.
There's a lot going on.
There really is. And one note tomorrow at our Fair Oaks location, the Arlington Rose Foundation, our friends there, are having it's their annual rose bush auction, rose cutting giveaway, and demonstration. So if you're a member, it's free to the members. If you want to come, there's a fee at the door, but I think that not only gets you the session, but it also gets you a membership in the Rose Foundation, which is great. So that's tomorrow at our Fair Oaks location from 2 to 4 p.m. So take advantage of that. And I think that is all these announcements that I have.
Well, we do have a lot going on, and it is beautiful, and everybody always enjoys not just seeing the finished Christmas part, but seeing it go up too.
It's fun.
These people are so incredibly talented, you know. But we are talking about planting, which it is a very good time to plant. We've had a warm fall, which is good. The soil is still warm, which means that those roots can grow out into that soil quicker. We aren't faced with the heat of summer. Now, you can plant all season, okay? You just have to be a little more careful about your watering. in the summertime. But right now it's perfect, you know. You do a thorough watering and then you don't have to worry about it as much. Certainly you need to check it. But, okay, I have a place. I have an opportunity. But I have to have a reason to plant a tree. And I chose a dogwood. This particular dogwood is a variety called Venus. But there are a lot of beautiful dogwood. And so it has taken the place, and as you can see in the next picture, when we were beginning the planting thing, I was so fortunate. Alfredo, who is based at our Fair Oaks location, and Danielle came out to plant this tree, and actually David Yost to narrate the planting of the tree, because proper planting is so important. And in this particular picture, Alfredo and Danielle are trying to be very sure that it's turned the way I want it to be, okay, and that it's straight. And the worst thing you want to happen is to have a tree that's not straight.
I know, and I think a lot of people don't realize that as they're planting. It's like, oops.
It's pretty important. Okay, the next picture will explain to you why I chose a dogwood. I'm lucky that I have a lot of native dogwood within our garden, and they bloom early. I have also a lot of other varieties. Behind this mass of azaleas, which has been in for many years, is where this empty space is. And I wanted a dogwood to rise up above those azaleas.
That'll be wonderful.
And it may not necessarily bloom along with them, but it will extend the season of bloom, because this particular one is a later variety. And in the next picture I will show you, this is at the edge of the woodland, and how beautiful some of these hybrids can be. Oftentimes the blooms are a little larger. They bloom at different periods of time. Some are mid-season, some are late season. This particular one that I chose is a cross, actually. And one of the crosses is the Coosa dogwood, which means that it is much later blooming. And so I chose a dogwood for a good reason.
Good.
But in the next segment, I want to share with you that a dogwood may not be right for you. And I have some other favorites. We could only touch on a few today. But I have 556
favorites.
I have a few favorites, and I'd like to share those with you. Great. Because there are choices.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we'll be right back with some of Peg's favorites. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, to Mary Fields Gardening Advisor. We're talking about planting. We're talking about beautiful plants, great choices, lots going on today. So you've got some extra favorites that you'd like to share.
I do. We've talked to you about trees, planting trees. And opening up, I showed you this magnificent oak, and I have a number of magnificent oaks. But now we're talking about the understory trees. You can see that this particular tree has large oaks behind it. And it is a native, Debbie. I know a lot of people really want to concentrate on natives.
They really do.
And this is the native fringe tree. When I was a little girl in southern Georgia, we called it Grandpa's graybeard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it looked
hanging
that
down
way.
Type of thing. Yeah.
And it's very fragrant. And I was lucky enough to have quite a number of these on the property already. So it is a native tree. It blooms beautifully, but because it's an understory tree, it's not as heavy a bloom, okay? But I love it, love it, love it. In the next picture, you'll see a fringe tree that's very different. This one
very
is
different.
Fair Oaks, because I have no full sun.
Right, that's true, that's true.
But this is the Chinese fringe tree. And it blooms a little later than the native fringe tree. And this one, this was last spring. I couldn't believe how full it was. So these things will grow in full sun or in part shade. But in the next picture, particularly, I like to think of all the trees that I plant having more than one season of interest, preferably 4 seasons of interest. So always look at the structure of the tree, because that's what you see in the winter time. And this is still young. This is that same tree that you saw in bloom, but this is the structure of that tree. And it's been limbed up so that you can see and appreciate that structure. So think not just of spring and the bloom, but what does it look like in the summertime, and what does it look like in the fall, and what does it give you in the winter?
And that's where the structure really plays in, those different seasons.
A big role. And the next picture is a favorite also. Oh, these are favorites.
Oh, I love crepe myrtle.
Crepe myrtle. This one happens to be a part of a border that goes down one side of the property. It's absolutely beautiful when it is a part of this border, or it's a wonderful standalone tree. And you can get them now from like 2 feet, 3 feet to 20 plus.
The choices
feet.
are just endless.
There's so many varieties that there's one of these out there for everybody if they want it. Many different colors in bloom. And then it's beautiful even in summer. And look what it's like in the fall in the next picture. They come out with a blaze of glory.
Oh, wow.
In the fall.
And I don't think people, when they see the crepe myrtle, I don't think they realize what they're looking at in the fall. You know what I mean?
Spectacular. Yeah. But the structure of this over winter is truly magnificent too. So you want to always be sure that you keep it a little thinned out at the bottom, or maybe a little thinned out on the inside, so that you can see and appreciate that structure. Okay, there's another favorite.
Of course.
And this one coming up is a native tree also. At least there in this picture we're seeing some hybrids of that native tree. I, again, very lucky to have on my property those that were there, but I've added to them. Yeah, because it's such a favorite. There's now nice green ones. There's forest pansy, which is the purple you're looking at. There are golden ones over summer. And in the next picture you'll see they all have similar bloom. It's a wonderful bloom in the early spring.
It always amazes me that it's called redbud. And it looks so purple.
It really isn't red, is it? No, I'm not sure about that either.
I know.
But it's still beautiful.
Oh, yes.
Now, I also have some weeping forms of these planted in my garden. And they're smaller, but they're really beautiful. And you can limb those up so that you really enjoy that weeping part. So let's see what happens when some of these plants are planted together. Fall, for me, rivals the beauty and the color of spring. I'm always so excited when I see all this color. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this area generally in a few minutes. But within this, there's native dogwood, there's Japanese maple, there's redbud. Spectacular color. Right now it looks just like this. In the next photo you'll see a portion of that area, and you see a Japanese maple with fall color coming in. Yes, they have leaf color in the summer, but the fall color is beyond belief, with burning bush in the background. And as I said, there's a plant out there for everybody. As far as trees are concerned, you might not think of this as a tree, but in the next picture, I'm growing a weeping Japanese maple in a container. Of course, Debbie knows because we filmed in the garden, and she actually was able to come over the other day too when we were doing this video. and walk through the garden. Container gardening is a very big part of my life because I trial so many things in the containers.
Absolutely.
But this particular one has been in this container for 2 years. It should have absolutely no problem going through the winter. And I may treat it somewhat as a bonsai next year to ease it out of that container.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Loosen up the roots, cut back a few, and replant it. Okay, so
that's great.
That's a few choices.
I was going to say just a few of her favorites, right? You can never have too many favorites. That's right.
They're good ones.
When we come back, we're going to invite David to help us out to talk about how to plant.
Right. So we are.
We'll be right back.
Oh yes, the frost is on the pumpkin. And don't forget, all these pumpkins and gourds are not just Halloween. They are so wonderful, they say Thanksgiving. And while we're so into this Christmas season and showing you the beautiful things that can be done, don't forget that we've got Thanksgiving coming up, okay? And then this makes me feel like Thanksgiving. I've come to the Chroma Screen for a reason. There's a lot going on in my backyard, and it didn't happen by accident. There are some magnificent trees here that give you a long season of bloom, and I'd like to be able to point to those and tell you what they are and why they're there, because this is a fantastic time to get them into the ground. There are a lot of large oak here, and since oak are deeper rooted, they're much easier to plant beneath. Now, if you're planting beneath an old established oak, you do want to respect that root system, okay? I wouldn't get in there with a rototiller and till this whole thing. I want to be careful that I do respect the roots, okay? But these were planted when the trees were much younger, okay? There are borders here, which you can see I've used liriope, I've used various things to define those borders. But within that, and as an understory, there's native dogwood here, which blooms earliest in the spring. Back over and behind it, again showing color, is the Coosa dogwood, which is a later blooming dogwood and has a slightly different but very interesting berry also, and beautiful structure. Moving into that, in this back section back here is burning bush. And I love those. When it loses its leaves, I use the branches of that in my arranging for Thanksgiving or fall, but also for Christmas. And then a Japanese maypole. Actually, I've got a couple of those. One that is behind my waterfall, which is back here, and one that is forward. And they turn this magnificent color. And again, they too give structure. Behind that, you can see a little more intense yellow up in here. And so these trees are not all the same height. There's some variation in there, which is much more interesting when you have that variation. I think when you look at this, you feel like it's somewhat three-dimensional, and that is a very pleasing thing to achieve. But this bright yellow that is in the background is the native redbud. And so can you imagine, I've got a staggering of color going on back here all spring. And many years ago, I planted azaleas of different heights also, plus of different bloom times. So you've got somewhat of a staggering of the bloom with that also. So there's a lot going on here. Now, you're going to get out and plant, and we're going to tell you how. So David Yost has a wonderful video that he's going to share with you how to plant that tree.
Planting a tree is one of the most basic and one of the most simple things that you can do in gardening. But like everything in life, there's a right and a wrong way to do everything, including planting a tree. So we're going to go through this process step by step, make sure we get everything correct so that that tree will go on to live a long, healthy life and give you years of enjoyment. Now, of course, this begins with digging the hole. We know that the roots spread out on plants, so when we dig our hole, we want to go 2, even 3 times the diameter of the root ball. So we're going to dig out wide, but not necessarily deep. There's no reason to go any deeper than the root ball or the container that the plant is already in. Well, as you can see, Alfredo and Daniel have gotten us off to a good start here with this nice wide hole. But before we can actually plant here, we want to improve and condition the soil to make sure those roots get established. As you can see, the soil here is in pretty good shape, you know, lots of organic matter from the woodland area, but we still have plenty of this dense, hard clay. So what we're going to do is we're going to condition and improve the soil by adding compost to it, and as that compost breaks down, it starts to improve the structure so the air and water can infiltrate and roots can grow and get established. So we'll be mixing in the superfine soil conditioner as our organic soil amendment, never more than about 25%. So we want to use the existing clay, but we're going to improve it by adding some compost. We will also be adding the Merrifield starter plant food, and that makes sure that we have balanced nutrients, specifically high in phosphorus, which will help in the establishment of our new tree. Once we get the soil conditioned, then we can start on the fun part, which is the actual planting. Okay, well, as you can see, we've had we're at the point where the hole's been dug, the soil's prepared, the tree is placed, and then we had all the cord and the string and the extra burlap removed from around it. We don't want anything that could potentially constrict the growth of this tree over the years ahead, or anything that would interfere with the roots getting developed. Now, the next thing I really want to emphasize, because this is a very important point that's often overlooked, is this root flare. This area where the stem of the tree and the roots begin to diverge, this needs to be at soil level. A lot of times these trees get excessive amounts of soil piled on top of them, and if that root flare gets buried, then that makes it very difficult for the roots to get the oxygen and the air that they need to grow. So one of the things I like to do is, before we do our final planting, is go around, make sure that we identify where that root flare is, see that that's exposed without any excessive amounts of soil piled up on top of it, and see that we get that at the proper planting depth. Once we have that proper planting depth, the next step is going to be taking our amended soil that has the compost, that has the fertilizer, and that gets backfilled in around this hole so the tree can begin developing those roots and expanding out to the native ground. Well, we're down to doing the finishing touches on planting our tree today, and that includes mulching, which you'll see we've put about 2-inch layer of mulch over the root ball, but not piled against the stem. If you get mulch piled up around the stem or the trunk of the tree, then that can lead to problems down the road. And then the final, but perhaps the most important step in planting, is the watering. We want to water this in immediately to make sure it settles out any air pockets, to make sure that moisture is there so that those roots can get out into the soil. So we're going to water slowly and deeply right on that root ball, and then come back and check on this at least once every 7 or 10 days to make sure that we don't allow it to dry out. So follow these simple steps and you can be guaranteed success and have a healthy tree for years to come.
Welcome back to Mary Fields Gardening Advisor. We've been talking about planting. That was a great video that David did. That the mulch winding up, mounding up on the root, on the stem.
It was very interesting.
Very good.
It wasn't just the mulch, it was the soil.
Yeah.
And I just have to give credit to, because this was a different kind of experience for us. And Michael Whitehead, who is our IT person out at the Fair Oaks location, hadn't cut and spliced quite like this before. And I think he did a magnificent job.
Did.
So thank you, Michael, because it's so nice to be able to do these videos, and we hope to do more of them. So hopefully we will.
Right.
Okay. We're encouraged to do that. Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to reiterate just a little bit and quickly some of the points that we did make in the video. So let's go through these first 3 pictures fairly quickly. And getting that tree straight is important, but here Alfredo and Danielle are actually being really sure that it's sitting at the right height. Now, when you've got a big tree like this, you don't want to be taking that root ball in and out of a hole. So measure the depth of the root ball.
Good point.
And the width. And measure the depth of your planting hole. And when you set that plant in place, be sure that that root ball is a little high. That's important here. And here again, Alfredo is removing the burlap. With this burlap, it's biodegradable. And so I literally cut it away down beneath the soil. Be absolutely sure there are no tags and no string around this tree. Even a tag on the branch can grow into that cambium layer. And check those plants, okay? Sometimes people forget.
Well, and it affects them so many years down the road
that you don't even
realize
notice.
it. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. So that's important. Now, in the next picture, again, the mulching. It's so important to mulch. That is helping to keep, at this time, the ground a little warmer, a little longer. In the summertime, it helps with the watering. But don't overmulch. Debbie, I'm sorry. You mentioned the thing in the video that I think is important is the soil that was actually up against the tree, and you could see where it was moist. You know,
right?
And unless you check, just gently pulling in that area, you'll never know. You know, and you can tell where the root system begins.
Right.
And to pull it back. By the same token, please do not do what you see sometimes going down the road.
I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
That much mulch.
Right.
Some people do.
It's not healthy. No.
No.
Do a couple of inches and hold it away from the base of your perennials, from the base of your tree, from the base. Don't pile it into the shrubs. Hold it back, okay.
And once you've got and he didn't get a chance to touch on this in the video, but watering is so important. Once you get that planted, you need to water it right away.
Absolutely. Thoroughly. And your father is a stickler for all of this. He's been teaching all kinds of people how to properly...
Master waterer.
But it's very, very important.
It's very important.
Water that plant no matter what time of the year you plant it. Water it deeply and thoroughly. And then only water when you go back and you feel where that root ball meets the soil and determine, is it drying out? And then water again. Now, at this time of the year, that's not so critical because we don't have all that heat out there, okay?
Right.
So chances are, if we, for instance, get a rain, as far as my tree is concerned, next week, I may not have to water it all anymore. But you want to check it to be sure.
That's right.
Now, I don't want to lose time for another important thing.
Okay.
And
bulbs?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's get started on that. We got a little time left.
It's a great time to plant bulbs too. And a very important time. And when I leave here today, actually, I'm going back to the Fair Oaks location, and I will be there. So underneath this tree, because it used to be the grandchildren's secret garden, and now it is a garden of contemplation, or a place for any of us to escape for a quiet moment. And there is a statue of St. Francis, because I believe in having accessories that fit the situation. And I want to talk about what I did to underplant.
Okay.
And quickly, I will say, I didn't want to overwhelm this area. I want it to be quiet. I want it to be low. I want to always see St. Francis and see the structure of the tree. Bulbs are very important, because you can plant those that start to bloom in January, February, March. Well, I've sort of geared for the March on, because that's when I'm likely to be out there in this area. And so I chose Scilla. In the next picture you'll see. This is in another area of my garden, obviously. But I have planted low-growing Scilla for a period of bloom. In the next one, I planted what they call Glory of the Snow. It's Chionodonxa, low-growing, and it will spread. In the following picture, I have planted miniature daffodils. Why did I do miniature daffodils? Because you don't have that tall, strong growth, and you don't have that tall, strong foliage. And I wanted to walk into there and see and enjoy little groupings of these. When it comes to miniature daffodils, there are so many varieties.
Oh, yes.
They can start blooming in March, and they can go right through into May. So just small groupings here and there of these are spectacular. What are some of the names of these? Some is Hawara, some is Tate, but there are a lot of different varieties, so look around for those. And then in the next picture we'll see Greggii tulips. These are early blooming, they're low growing, they're more like the species tulips that you're likely to get them to stay in place for several years. Early blooming, absolutely beautiful. Another one that is totally perennial for me and spreads so gracefully is the species tulip. I love it, okay? Just come in and ask for Clausiana. There's several colors, and they're growing with grape hyacinths. And Debbie's got
it is a perfect time to plant bulbs. We've still got plenty to choose from, so come on in, take a look, grab them, put them in, because it's going to make such a difference next spring.
It really will, and like I say, I'm going back to the Fair Oaks location, and I'll be there for several hours. So, you know, if you'd like any advice on any of these, I'll be there. Ask for me.
Great. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Now, you've got your tree planted, you've got your bulbs in. Now you want to add a few extras.
And here again, Debbie, I wanted to keep this a low planting. I don't want it to be really fussy.
Right.
I want it to be more of a ground cover kind of thing with a lot of interest going on. Not a riot of color, but when you walk up to this garden with contemplation, or the secret garden as the grandchildren also referring to it, as their grown-up secret garden.
Right.
Okay.
You're never too old for a secret garden.
No, I don't think so. and it's a very private area, you know, away from the crowds.
The hustle bustle.
Yeah, it is. And so I wanted to plant perennials because I wanted to be easy care. The one I have in my hand is an unusual plant. It is a geranium. And no, it's not an annual geranium, it's a perennial geranium. But even in that crowd, it's different. It's like a woodland geranium. It grows beautifully in part shade, which it has there. It's somewhat evergreen. The fragrance of the foliage is divine.
Peggy was just mentioning she likes to walk through the garden and pop down and just touch it.
It's wonderful.
Hear that, to see that.
It's just so, smells so good.
Exactly. Enjoy it all.
But it blooms too. It blooms in the spring, and it makes a ground cover. I am not talking about aggressive ground covers today. I am talking about plants that play well together. Okay, so let's show you a picture of that plant in bloom. I think it's coming up next.
Could be our
If
next
not,
picture.
we'll talk about
there
something
we go.
else.
There we go.
This is the plant in bloom. And it's playing really well with Helleborus, which is another good one. It's playing with phlox, which in the next picture, if we roll through some of these, because I've done an awful lot of talking. Okay. The phlox stolonifera. This is a different kind of phlox too. It's a woodland phlox, a native phlox. Absolutely beautiful.
Oh, look, it's just gorgeous looking back at that.
It is,
Oh.
and it's so beautiful when it's mixed with these low-growing daffodils. In the following, and blooms in spring, by the way, the following picture, again, there's fragrance to this. Another native plant, Phlox divaricata. These are very different than your summer phlox. And by the way, they're not subject to mildew either.
Oh, good.
Put on a spectacular bloom, and there it's playing gracefully with hosta. So this is a great plant. In the following picture, we have the same beautiful phlox playing well with fern. Fern is another beautiful shade type thing. And let's come back, because Debbie's got a couple of different ferns there. I'd love to show you. These in Debbie's hands when we come back to the desk is going to be wonderful. She holds these plants so nicely. They're both evergreen, which is a big advantage. I do cut them back in the March, for instance, and let them come back fresh because they get a little ratty looking in February. But they're two magnificent ferns here. So ferns mixed with all of these. No, they don't bloom, but they give you green, and green is a necessary ingredient to every garden.
Well, and a neat texture
too. Yes, yes,
because they're also
so right, Debbie. We do have the texture. So I think we've got time to roll through a couple of more of these. I really do want to show you another really favorite, which is again semi-evergreen, and that is Pulmonaria. I do not care for the common name of this, but you know, a lot of these common names came about because of how they were used or how they thought they would be beneficial, and we're actually getting back to a lot of those medicinal qualities right now. This one is Pulmonaria with the yellow of a miniature daffodil called Sundisk coming through. But it's called lungwort. Why? Because the leaves are very spotted. And in the front of that blue flower is another native plant called Tiarella. And there's some crosses of this Tiarella that are magnificent. Again, we're getting bloom out of this. But just as we leave this segment, let's go out on the magnificent color of Pulmonaria, a lungwort.
You're right, that is not a good name.
No. Look at the color of that. Almost all of these flowers, though, the color varies with some of the varieties. Come out one color and turn somewhat. You can see there's a very intense blue purple and then an intense pinkish tone here. I really do enjoy these plants.
Absolutely.
They're beautiful. Bloom in the springtime.
Well, our hour is flying by, but we've got one more segment, so we'll be back in just a minute. Hope to see you then. Now we've got another very unique plant here. I'm going to try to hold it as still as I can and get a close-up shot there. Okay, yeah, let's see if we can.
Oh, she's got that shot, Debbie. Thank you for
good.
being that steady hand.
Tell us about this one, Peg.
This is Tricertis, or another interesting common name, toad lily.
What is with these names?
I don't know. I don't know. That's not very flattering.
No.
But there's varying blooms on these. They bloom late. They bloom for a long time. Now, all of this particular garden that we've been talking about, our new secret garden, is, and I'm, while you've got the camera there, look, I'm going to hold this next to it.
Oh, yes.
Is that not the color pick?
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Heuchera is one of my favorites anyway.
It's a beauty. And by the way, these do so well in containers. If you don't have your containers done, do up some of these heuchera coral bells along with some pansies, and you'll have something that's beautiful all winter, you know. But I don't want this garden that we have worked on to be totally flat, and there are some variations, slight variations in the heights of the ground cover perennials I've used. But every now and then, I want to use something that's different. And this is not a see-through plant, but it's close. And it will attain some height. It'll go into that 2-3 foot. It's going to maintain a position too. It's not going to go shooting out into everything. Okay, but it will give it a little height variation, which is wonderful. And even when you're working with the bulbs, I'm not really sure where that bulb got off to. Yeah, I am sure. It's right here. If you're working with the bulbs, try something different this year. I have low-growing daffodils. I have the low-growing scilla, the Chiadodoxa, the glory of the snow. There's so many low tulips. All right, Debbie, get that turned right and so that the thing's not on it.
Oh, oops, there we go.
Try one of the tall ones. This is one that doesn't hide anything. The foliage disappears quickly, so you don't have a competing foliage. It's a late bloomer, and it's got a name, oh my goodness, Nectaroscortum. Okay?
Easy for you to say.
If I even pronounce that right. It's tall, it's gorgeous. If you've never done it before, do it. Be brave. Always try something very different.
Okay, got a question.
Yeah.
Deer.
Deer. Okay. I need to say a little bit about this week, and I'd like to elaborate more next week. But we are having a lot of questions at the Garden Center about the deer, and I have a lot of not always complimentary words to say when I go home and I see the deer. There are no acorns this year.
Right.
Not at my house, not at my kids' house, and not at a lot of people's houses. So they have nothing to eat except our evergreens. And that's dangerous because they'll often eat things they don't normally eat when that happens, because survival is important. Whether it's holly, and you wouldn't think they would eat holly because of the leaves.
If they're hungry enough, they'll eat anything. We've determined that.
It's pretty incredible. So go out now. Spray your azaleas. Spray your aucubas, spray your hollies, spray anything, okay? I use Bobex a lot, but there are other natural repellents and some people like to rotate what they use. Now, with going into fall and the cooler season and winter, to keep them from devastating your azaleas, spray well now. And it will actually be present in that plant for over a month. So you don't have to spray that often, just spray well. I use a pump sprayer because I've got a lot to spray.
Right.
I do. And just do it. It may be the only way you'll have it. And then midwinter, on a warmish kind of day and a sunny day, you may need to go out and spray again, but it's worth it, you know, to do that. Right. I love my plants, I really do, and I don't want them to nurture these deer.
I know.
I'm sorry, I just really don't.
Now you put a couple of special things in this new little garden you've created.
Yes, I do, and let's show you those because it is an updated secret garden.
Right, there you go.
But it is also, as I said, a garden to go and meditate if you choose to do that. And so we placed a St. Francis statue here in the garden because he's a patron saint of flowers anyway. And we added a beautiful piece of driftwood. And we need a place to sit down. And so I found at the Garden Center this magnificent concrete bench.
It's hard to tell. That is a bench.
It is a bench.
What you're looking is the base there. But
you can see the feet of one of Gretchen's friends there. This was taken last Sunday. Gretchen took it actually. And it's being held up by owls. My husband always asks the grandchildren if they were worth a hoot. And so the owls are holding up the bench, and they were pleased with it. And the next picture I wanted to share with you because our granddaughter Gretchen and her 4 lovely girlfriends were wandering all over the garden Sunday in their photo shoot. Oh, they love to get out and take pictures within the garden. But that is what a garden is all about. It is about enjoying it. This is Michelle, our youngest daughter, with 2 of her sons, Liam and Eamon. And we were all outside last Sunday enjoying the garden.
That's great.
So take time to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Absolutely. And next week we're going to kind of continue, but we're going to kind of get along the fun side of gardening next week.
We got some fun things. Well, we got some, you know, you have to balance it. Fun.
Absolutely. Don't forget, Monday is Veterans Day. Be sure to honor, remember, and teach. And thank you to our veterans every day, every day. Hope you have a great week, and we will see you next time here on Mary Fields Gardening Advisor.